show. Thanks, Russ.
Yeah, we bought him a T-shirt, so we probably owe him another T-shirt.
I haven't gotten him a T-shirt for this show, but this show doesn't have its own T-shirts, although it should. Our Polar Bear logo is pretty cool.
You got a brand new job, Bobby. So I think you can buy him a T-shirt if you like.
Yeah, I could. Well, actually, I was going to say that. So those drinks that I bought you and Megan, I can now actually afford those retroactively. So there we go.
I tried to buy you the drink just to be fair.
I know, but I can now retroactively afford them. So there we go. It worked out. I made a bet on myself being able to afford those drinks, and it worked. Anyway, so I'll count down, do 3, 2, 1, and then we'll start. I can't even remember how we typically start the show.
I have no idea. It's been at least 6 months, hasn't it?
It's been since October.
Okay.
So it's been a while. But, all right. So 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to another episode of Zooperflex. And by back, I mean, it's been a while. We were just talking about this. It's been since October, but I'm happy to be back with my good friend, Matt. And Matt has been continuing to do all of his Zookeeper stuff during this weird time that we're living in. And Matt, how are you doing now?
I'm doing good, man. Other than a little bit reduced work schedule, a little bit more time off every week. Like my life really hasn't changed that much. I'm not somebody that goes out a lot anyway. I pretty much see the same people that I would see in non-pandemic times. So I'm a homebody anyway. So it for an introvert, it's kind of like paradise right now, to be honest with you, outside of like a few scary trips to the grocery store, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say, most people, you know, that like Bane meme of you simply adopted the dark. I was born in it. That's how I feel sometimes with this quarantine stuff. Like I'm a homebody too, so I spend all my time reading books and watching TV.
Yeah.
So really everyone else is just living the lifestyle that I've always lived.
I miss traveling, you know, I missed that part. We had to cancel a couple vacations planned, you know, trip to Hawaii and some other stuff, but you know, otherwise things are good.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm actually supposed to be in Greece either right now or like in a week. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm podcasting from Greece right now. But with that, I'm going to introduce our guest. And honestly, our guest doesn't really need much of an introduction. If you don't know who he is, you're probably living under a rock. But our guest this week is Scott Fish of the Scott Fish Bowl. You can find him at ScottFish24 on Twitter. He's also involved with Safe Leagues. He does the Commish Pod with Ryan McDowell. And he's been voted Humanitarian of the Year and the Athletics Person of the Year in 2018. And all of those are well-deserved. So thanks for joining us, Scott. We're very happy to have you on.
Thanks for having me on, guys. This is awesome. It's good to be here. Like both of you, I was supposed to be in France in a couple weeks, and that one got canceled. So, yeah, missed traveling.
Yeah, everybody is just going to be disappointed listening to this pod, thinking about all their trips they were supposed to be on. We should probably transition into some football talk and some animal talk, just so that we're not instantly turning off all of our listeners.
I was going to say, starting to talk football like 5 minutes into a show, that's really weird. I'm not used to that.
It's a little bit weird for this show, to be honest with you as well. So
that's true. There usually is a tangent at the beginning of the show. It's just that with everything going on, I can't talk to you guys about much besides the fact that I've been playing a ridiculous amount of MLB The Show and reading a ton of fantasy books. And I don't think our listeners really want to hear that. If they do, they can slide into my DMs. But other than that, do you guys have anything you'd like to talk about before we jump into the football talk?
I don't think so. I'm excited for someone to actually slide into your DMs about this. We need more MLB The Show talk on the show.
I could only imagine. Well, I'd be like, well, you take a power swing with. No, I'm not doing it.
I do think it's crazy that correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've heard, because I don't really play DFS anymore, but is there like DFS now for like Madden and like baseball video games and stuff? I know there's like tournaments and things going on. Like people are watching streams of that instead of actual sports, but I think I heard there was DFS for it too.
Yes, that's an actual thing that's happening.
That's insanity.
The other day, so I guess this is our tangent now. The other day, I was watching some TV with my parents because I'm currently living with my parents while we ride this out. And on the TV was what looked like an actual basketball game, but both my dad and I quickly recognized that it was actually just people playing NBA 2K. But my mom walked in and she's like, wait, sports are back? And she sat there for like 20 minutes thinking it was real basketball and no one corrected her until eventually I was just like, Mom, look, it's a video game. And she couldn't believe it. So yeah, graphics have come a long way.
Man, that is something that the graphics are that good nowadays that it can fool the non video gamer.
Yeah, but to your point, Matt, DFS for anything is legitimate right now. Like that marble racing.
Man, I love marble racing. It's so intriguing. Like, I don't know why, but like everyone that I put on, even people that are not sports fans, I'll throw marble racing on there, and then all of a sudden they're rooting for Deep Ocean or whatever. Like it's a thing. I like to watch it. And I don't know if you guys watched last week tonight with John Oliver. That show is great. But they have now sponsored I don't remember, the jellies, like marble racing tournaments or something. It's a big one, and I think they're out of Germany or something like that. And so they've now been sponsored so that they can run this 2020 tournament, and they not only run like the little sand tracks and stuff, they build like Lego tracks and like have different like competitions, like relays where one marble will bump into the other one and send that one on. So it's getting big, man. So good for them for getting a sponsor.
Out of curiosity, have you guys been turning pretty much everything you can into sports at home? So I'll take the dogs out in my yard, and they have like a little fence area, and I'll kick a ball at it and pretend it's a goal. I have a laundry basket in my room that I, of course, throw all my clothes at, but only shoot it like a basketball and refuse to place it in normally.
Well, I have a 7-year-old, so that's my daily. He makes brackets and tournaments for everything we do. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. I think even when sports existed, that was a thing in this house.
I have a request for Ian. He needs to make a best animal bracket. I need to see this.
I will make sure he does that.
And if Monster doesn't win, then it's
what about Snowman?
Snowman is good too,
Inside jokes.
I hope to be part of them one day.
Nice, Michael. Oh, fun.
Yeah. Well, with that, when you start talking about inside jokes that not everybody gets, I think that's a great transition into talking about something that everybody will get. So let's start talking about some of these rookie quarterbacks. And we're going to begin with Joe Burrow. And Scott, give us some thoughts on Joe Burrow. Do you think he's going to succeed right away? What does it mean for his offensive weapons? And if you have one, don't feel pressured, but if you have one, give him an animal comp.
I put more time and effort thinking about an animal comp for him than I did on his prospects for 2020 here. No, I actually think the Bengals offense could be a lot better than people think, with AJ Green coming back and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins coming in. John Ross is still there. Auden Tate made some awesome catches last year. Maybe the Bengals will finally get Joe Mixon more involved in the passing game. And he opens it up just by, having a good ground game there. I think Burrow can far exceed expectations. I think in redraft leagues, he's going like late teens, even 20s as quarterback. In Dynasty, obviously he's got a lot more value there. But for this year, I think he could really threaten as a top 15 quarterback with all the weapons he has and the potential for the Bengals to be behind in games and him having to shoot it out. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of what he has there in Cincy.
Matt, what do you think about Burrow?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree, and he's intriguing, especially in redraft. You know, we as one of those late round quarterback targets. So last year we don't really have I don't think we really have an obvious one this year. Like last year, it was pretty obvious that Lamar Jackson was going to smash his ADP. We probably didn't think he was going to be quarterback one, but he was kind of an obvious late round target. This year, I don't really think we have one, but Burrow makes a lot of sense as that someone who's coming into a good offensive situation. They spent a first round pick last year on Jonah Williams, who on offensive tackle. Jonah Williams, who missed basically the entire season last year. So they've got some offensive lineman firepower. I think I read something he was training with Joe Staley too, so that can't be anything but good. Obviously some good offensive weapons there. I guess we'll see if Mixon holds out. That the running back situation might be a little bit questionable, and we know how much he or the system at LSU like to throw to the running back with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So if Mixon is there, then that's going to be huge for him. I will say though that, like, from a long-term standpoint, and I know they're completely different situations, but I've always had this weird feeling about quarterbacks that are really successful one-year starters. And I know he's very different than Mitchell Trubisky, different situations and all of that stuff. But Cam Newton. So I don't know. It just feels a little bit like he has a chance to not be as good as everybody thinks he is. I'm not necessarily sure he's this can't miss prospect, but it's hard to argue with the best college football quarterback season ever in the SEC, right? So I'm optimistic, but there is a little bit in the back of my mind that says, I think there is a chance that he could fail.
Management too, like the Bengals are just such a hard team to trust that they'll use him right or figure out, keep him stocked with weapons or keep the offense going right. Like the Bengals are just hard to trust with a lot of that stuff, even though Andy Dalton did have like a top 3 year once.
And I really hope that Zach Taylor, I think he's a smart coach. We think he is anyway. I hope he just lets Burrow do what he's good at, like let him bring in the system that he was so successful with in college. Because if he tries to fit him into this other scheme where, I guess we're going to find out real quick whether or not it was Joe Brady, or if it was Joe Burrow, maybe some combination of the two. But I think Taylor really needs to let him do what he does well to be successful.
I'm sure Teddy Bridgewater fans are hoping that it was Joe Brady.
I was just going to say, I'm intrigued by Teddy Bridgewater. He's another one of those late round options, I think, that is interesting, that could, significantly outperform ADP.
He's got some weapons too.
Yeah.
Bridgewater.
Yeah.
Samuel, Moore, McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, et cether, et cetera.
Let's not pick Bridgewater too much. I did just trade away my only share 20 minutes ago. So.
I know this is often a tangent now, but since we're here, everybody, maybe not anymore, but it seemed early on once they got Bridgewater, everybody was down and got Robbie Anderson. They were pretty down on Curtis Samuel. But I don't know. Curtis Samuel is somebody I think can operate really close to the line of scrimmage, and that seems to be Teddy's strength.
Yeah,
so I've been buying Curtis Samuel ever since everybody has been saying, oh, he can't coexist with Robbie Anderson.
I got him twice after this in the same situation as you. Got him twice just because he got cheap enough.
Yeah.
The offseason hype from last year turned into a downswing this year, and I grabbed him in a couple places. Animal comp. did you guys have one too? Because
I have one now. Yeah, I got it.
I have one that I'm not sure fits.
Throw it out there, Scott.
Perfectly, but and I don't know if it's if it's a shot at Burrow or if it's a compliment, but I'm gonna go with a prairie dog.
Ooh, okay.
There are lots of times he runs around quite a bit, he pops his head up and down, avoiding defenders, and then jumps up and throws the ball downfield like a prairie dog jumps out of its hole and barks when there's I don't know, just what the hell.
And they're really gregarious animals, they rely on the rest of their quote unquote team to be successful. So maybe Burrow is going to be the same way.
I hope Joe Burrow this year behind that Bengals line, he jumps up and barks once, and everybody just jumps and barks.
Allen. I don't know who the Allen is for Cincinnati, but hopefully it's AJ Green.
Oh man,
Matt, what's your comp?
I went because to me I feel like his best trait is accuracy in intermediate areas of the field. It was 76% accuracy and 80% within between 10 and 20 yards, something like that. So I went with the archer fish, which is this fish it lives in rivers, and I think in South America, and they shoot basically water out of insects off of leaves, and are pretty accurate with that, and that's how they eat. Basically, is to shoot insects off of plants that along the water's edge.
Wonder how they got their name. That's crazy.
I don't know. It's weird.
That sounds like my new favorite fish, to be honest. It's like the coolest.
Hey, shots fired over here.
My new favorite fish that lives in water. Actually, for all I know, you could. I really don't know her.
Don't you see the gills on Scott's neck? I know people at home can't see him, but I can see some gills under there.
Nice. I like it. Archer fish.
My animal comp was a honey badger, and that's because the first piece of news that I could find when I was trying to find news about Joe Burrow was that he got in a fight with one of his teammates at practice when he was in LSU for basically knocking him down, and he got right up in his face and just shoved him backwards essentially and got really aggressive, and the whole team started fighting. Supposedly they later were like, oh yeah, we all respected him for getting in his face and starting this huge brawl between teammates. But at the same time, it's just really aggressive. There's all those memes about honey badger don't care. And I just imagine Joe Burrow with the cigar in his mouth walking around looking like he doesn't care about anything. Did
LSU play into that at all too? Yeah,
a bit.
Yeah.
I also honestly hope that he becomes the next Jay Cutler. Not in the style of play and just the like total don't give a fuck attitude. That'd be awesome to see because we need a new Jay Cutler. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there is a lack of quarterbacks who just don't care.
No DGAF quarterbacks right now, huh?
Trubisky kind of fits that, but I actually think he cares. He just isn't making it. Maybe Josh Allen or Drew Lock have a little bit of that in them at times.
Yeah, Drew Lock definitely. Don't get me started on Drew Lock. I've made a lot of Broncos fans angry this offseason by talking about how they should sign Cam Newton and how he'd probably replace Drew Lock.
Oh man, yeah. I think they really want to give Lock the reins there. So I don't know if that's happening.
Yep.
If he fails with all of that, then man.
They could also just bring in Newton as an insurance policy, but I know this is another tangent, but I think if you sign Newton whatsoever, no matter what, the media is going to make a controversy about who the starting quarterback is, and that's probably why he's not signed yet.
Yeah. I don't know. They aren't making a controversy out of Jameis Winston. Oh, no, they kind of are. But not with Winston.
Yeah. Well, I mean, does anyone actually believe, and sorry if you do, that Taysom Hill is the future of that franchise?
I don't know. Kind of.
I don't believe he's the future, but I can easily see him being a 1 to 2 year stopgap. Yeah, bridge.
Yeah.
I could easily see that. Like, I don't know how much I believe it, but I could see it happening. But I don't see him as like the 8 years after Breeze.
Well, isn't he almost 30?
Yeah.
So he's 30. And I don't know if he would necessarily be successful as a full-time starter, but I do think that Sean Payton has a big enough ego to think he can make him successful for some period of time.
I think he has like 14 career passes or something like that. Like we don't. Nobody has enough info to know if he'd be good as a full-time starter. We don't even have enough info to know that he'd be good as a 1 quarter starter.
It's kind of like Bill Belichick with Stidham trying to prove that he can turn anything into a good quarterback.
That situation is so weird. Like, I just don't like Cam Newton just falls in your lap and you're not going to bring him in. That feels so weird.
Or even just looking at the deal that Winston took to play with the Saints.
Yeah, right.
It's really interesting. Although the Patriots don't have that much cap room. And as someone who picked up a few Stidham shares in like the 4th round of Superflexes last year, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, or I'm at least not fully sold that he's going to be the guy, even though at least for now, they're trying to make him that guy.
Yeah, I think he's the guy enough that he's going to get the opportunity. Like, I don't know if he's the future, but I think he's going to get every shot this year.
Absolutely.
I'm upset Winston didn't get a starting role, though. Not that he deserved it. I think he's just fun to watch. You never know what's going to happen on it. He's the closest Jay Cutler comp out there.
Yeah, but he has LASIK now, so
I was going to say
he might not be as decaf now. He might see those defenders and think twice about throwing it downfield.
I don't know. LASIK helps your eyes, but not your decision making. Like he's throwing it while basically horizontal before. Like that is the vision thing. That's a I don't care. Yeah.
The opportunity of at least seeing if a Winston who can actually see the field is a better quarterback, and that's saddening.
Imagine that. I mean, we're talking about a guy who has nearly 20,000 yards at age 26, and we're like, let's see if he's better. That's crazy.
At the very least, I mean, maybe what was happening with some of his bad decision making was he was like seeing 2 or 3 of the defender and going, okay, I don't think the guy in the middle is the real one. So if I throw it there, he won't be there. Oh, damn it.
Oh, man. You never know. Never know.
Yeah. I'm trying to find a good way to transition, and there just really isn't one. So let's just start talking about Tua.
Do you watch what we do in the shadows?
I do.
You guys watch
I haven't. I've seen the movie, but I haven't watched the series yet.
You need to watch
the series. Is so much better.
Amazing.
I
Really?
love the movie, and the series is so much better.
Okay, then I'm going to fire that up today.
But Scott, are you caught up?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, no. I think this very last episode
I'm not sure when past weeks either, but the Colin Robinson episode was one of the greatest episodes of television ever.
My wife and I cried laughing. It was so funny. But where I was going with this was Laszlo when he transitions from human to bat, he yells bat and he transitions. So I think you should, when you do your transition, like if there's a dead spot, just go transition and then go to the next spot.
I think that's going to be my new thing because usually I just talk about it, but from now on, I'm not even. It's just going to be the one word transition.
I have a question about the show. Do you need because Megan hasn't seen the movie? Do you need to see the movie before you see the show?
No.
Okay.
No.
Perfect.
There is an episode I think in season 2 where the movie characters have a cameo, but it's a different foursome technically. Different familiar, everything. Yeah, no, you don't have to watch the movie at all.
Perfect. It's self-contained.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, I've said this to a lot, and pretty much anyone who will listen. Now that The Good Place is off air, it's between that and Brooklyn for my favorite comedies on TV right now.
Did you say Brooklyn or Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yep.
Gotcha. Yep, that's a good show. I really like that one.
Yeah,
so What We Do in the Shadows is great.
All right. That's coming on today then.
Nice.
Yeah. It's all on Hulu, so.
Well,
all right.
Now I get to do that.
Transition. You should get all the hosts to do it at the same time.
So we're going to talk about Tua. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his last name because I know.
Tagovailoa. Come on.
Tagovailoa. Is that how you say it?
Tagovailoa.
All right, Tagovailoa. And he was drafted.
There's an extra N in there, I think. But
this is why I don't do it. I'm just going to say Tua.
Next up on the Zooperflex podcast, Bobby pronounces Albert O's last name.
Next up on the Zooperflex podcast, Bobby sends an apology to Tua, similar to the orangutans, for mispronouncing his name.
I'm glad I picked another animal that's hard to pronounce. I'm looking forward to that.
Ooh, I wonder if we have the same one.
Tua.
So Tua.
Oh no, I didn't pick an animal for Tua. I'll try to pick one on the spot. Let's go.
He was drafted by the Dolphins, who obviously have Ryan Fitzpatrick or Fitzmagic there, and he is recovering from his hip injury. We'll start with Matt this time. Matt, do you think Tua starts at all this year, or is it essentially a redshirt freshman year for him?
I think there's a chance he sits all year, but I don't think it's very likely as long as he's proven that he's healthy. We've maybe not last season, I guess, but historically, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick, when he's come into situations like this, he's had 4 to 5 really good games, and then defenses catch it up, and he turns into Fitzpumpkin, right? So I think there's a chance that happens. This is a team that they definitely came on at the end of last season, but maybe with that 7th playoff spot, somehow they sneak in, but I really don't think they're competing again this season. So if they get to a point where they're, out of the running for sure, I think that Tua comes in. I don't want to put a week on it, but I would say, he gets at least like 6 games. I would guess, if not more than that.
Yeah, it's one of those things with the weird offseason that I think that a quarterback like Tua or like, several of the others, at least the other one we're going to talk about today, like I think they might have gotten a chance week 4, week 5, or I think it might be later in the season in a year like this that happens. But I'm on the same page as Matt. I don't think he redshirts the full season unless there's some kind of setback or something like that. I think they're going to want to get him in there and see what they got. And Matt's right on Fitzpatrick. I mean, Fitzpatrick has never been able to be the boom version of Fitzpatrick for longer than like 3 games. I think he had maybe one season where he had more than a 3-game stretch of being awesome.
You don't think you're underestimating the ability of his new outfits with those like tracksuits and all the swag that he's wearing?
Have you seen his hair and beard? I mean, like
I do like him quite a bit. I mean, he's the Jay Cutler, the current Jay Cutler.
Quite a bit. Yeah,
he's fun. He's absolutely fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now I didn't.
Looks like the Dolphins bye is week 11, so maybe weeks 12 through 17 for Tua.
If you're his owner, would you be happy with that? And as a follow-up question, I know how Matt feels about this, Scott, so I'll direct it more towards you. In Dynasty, would you rather have Burrow or would you rather have Tua?
I'd still rather have Burrow. As far as the owner thing for Tua this year, I can't imagine there are a lot of people grabbing Tua expecting fantasy points out of him in year 1. Like I think it's in your mindset. If you're drafting Tua, it's a bonus if you get any startable weeks out of him in year 1. So I don't think that's really too much of a thing.
Well, yeah, and like in a Superflex format, if you have a pick where you can take him, you probably weren't very good last season anyway, so you're probably okay waiting on him for another year, I would guess.
I have a contender where I have the 102, and I'm sure some of my league listens to this, but I'll probably be taking Tua, but my quarterback situation has also fallen apart. And part of the reason I have 102 is because I traded, very sadly, it broke my heart, but I traded DJ Moore away for that pick and some other stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's a fairish trade. I mean, I generally make trades like that in Superflex anyway, just because I try to draft or auction as many quarterbacks as I can in Superflex drafts and auctions, because I know once that draft or auction is over, they're so much harder to get. So I'm fine with that. It's a little bit, yeah. Yeah, I'm fine.
I've never actually done one of those. Like, I think it's John Hogue that always pushes the strategy of like, out of your first 5 picks, you come away with 4 quarterbacks. I've never tried that, but it sounds like a lot of fun.
I won't leave a Superflex startup without at least 2 in the first 4 rounds. I just never do it. It never happens.
I've always been more comfortable having just 2 solid starters and maybe having a third, fringe guy. But having 4 or 5, and then you have the flexibility to trade for other positions is kind of intriguing.
Yeah, I've been fighting myself with Minshew as my third. Like I find myself like Kyler Watson and Minshew, or Kyler Allen and Minshew, or guy like, and I'm very comfortable with something like that.
I have a lot of like older third too, like Breeze is my third guy. Like Roethlisberger is my third guy.
Yeah.
That's the exact situation I just found myself in, Scott. So that trade where I traded Teddy Bridgewater, I got Minshew, but this was a recent startup where I took Watson and Murray. And the intent was, okay, I'll take these 2 guys and then I'll trade one of them for a haul. And then people kept offering me like probably pretty solid deals, but not an overpay. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to keep Watson and Murray for the next decade and hope that they can continue to be the guys they are and spend my rookie picks elsewhere. So the strategy definitely changed a bit, because I definitely went into it thinking, okay, I'm going to hold these guys ransom. And it went, I've fallen in love with the guys and now I can't sell them.
This is maybe not right this minute, but we're in the window, I think, to buy Watson too, because I think in a lot of places he's even fallen below Dak. So like he's fallen from QB 2 to 3 down to 5. So
Yeah, I routinely see him going definitely behind Kyler and Lamar and Mahomes, but I've seen him drop behind Dak a couple times.
Yeah, I think some people are overemphasizing Lamb and what he'll do for Dak's fantasy outlook. I don't know that it'll change that drastically. I do like Lamb, but I just think he's basically the new Gallup, or the production will shift a bit, but it won't increase greatly.
I think it helps Zeke almost more than Dak.
I agree with that.
No one's going to be stacking the box. And
I need to know if what we saw to Dak last year is the new Dak, or if what we saw the first 3 years was Dak, which was still very good.
Right.
Like we're still top 12 quarterback, but last year got a little ridiculous.
And the report I saw this morning was that they offered him 5 years, $175 million, that he still is not okay with that.
Yeah.
Just take the money, Dak. Jeez. Undrafted. Was he undrafted? No, he wasn't undrafted.
No, he wasn't undrafted.
Not
highly.
I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 6th round or 5th round, something like that.
Dak?
We should know.
For some reason, I thought Dak was a 4th rounder.
It might have been 4th round.
Yeah. I'm almost positive he was a 4th rounder.
Actually,
regardless, those guys don't make $175 million. So come on, Dak. I think that's enough.
Yeah, 4th round.
Yeah, no, Dak has always been very accurate, but last year was crazy for him fantasy-wise, and the team attempted way more passes than it typically has. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if he can keep that up. But, Watson is a guy that I've always really liked. And if you're giving me Dak versus Watson, I'll take Watson every time. So if I have Dak and can turn him into Watson plus, that's a move I'm instantly looking to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I still have Watson ranked higher than Dak. I think Watson can still do it even without Hopkins. It does worry me about that GM situation down in Houston, though. But one can hope that Deshaun Watson is a New England Patriot next year or something.
Well, also, when one can trade one of the best wide receivers in the game for a washed-up David Johnson, you have to do it, Scott.
You got to do it. I'm shocked they didn't fail that physical last minute. just clear that trade out. That's insane. I had when that trade happened. I was looking at one of my dynasty startups where I had Watson and Kyler are my 2 quarterbacks in that Zooperflex league, and I'm like, I don't even know how to feel about this trade right now. Oh, man.
To be fair, I am actually a pretty big Brandon Cooks guy. I know he had concussions, but when he's healthy, he plays well. So while he's not Hopkins, that does help them at least a bit, I think.
Yeah, they have a lot of rundown midfield guys.
So much speed, yeah.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Transition!
We didn't do an animal comp. I have one.
I forgot. Or the animal comps.
Okay. Matt, what's your animal comp? Because I didn't think of one. I'm not sure I'll be able to think of one in time.
I went with, this is also a shout out to, I guess, Red List 3 coming online here pretty soon. But I went with a Przewalski horse.
You made that up.
I didn't. Przewalski horses are native to Mongolia, and they basically went extinct in that area. I think in the 50s, I believe. And at that time, zoos really started breeding them in zoological settings, managed care settings, and then released about 90 back, and now they're back up to 300 or so in their native habitat. So they're one of the zoo success stories, I think. So I think the same way with Tua. He was very successful. He was a very successful quote animal, and then he got hurt, and now he's going to come back and be successful again. So kind of a stretch maybe, but that's what I went with. I guess you could also go like California condor or something like that, another animal that basically came back from extinction.
By the way, I was joking. The Minnesota Zoo has a ton of them. I love the Minnesota Zoo, and they have a bunch of them. They have a bunch of Przewalski horses. I think it just says Asian horses on the sign.
They're my second favorite equid behind the Somali wild ass. And Ryan McDowell and Dan Myler will be co-owning the Somali Wild Ass Vampire team in Red List 3.
Oh boy. That sounds like a very fun league you're setting up there.
Hope so.
I mean, Red List 2 is a lot of fun, so I'm sure Red List 3 will be a lot of fun, especially if you're adding in vampire elements.
Yeah, I've only played in one vampire before, and it wasn't an auction format, so we'll see how it goes.
Scott, was that enough time to give you an animal comp for Tua, or do you
No, I was actually looking how many of these horses the Minnesota Zoo has, and they have 25.
Oh my gosh, that's a big herd.
Yeah, that's what I said. They have a lot of
crazy.
Them. Yeah.
Well, I do have an animal comp for Tua, and it's going to sound like an insult, but it's really not. I just learned this because I had to Google it real quick, but I'm going to comp him to a jellyfish, and the reason why is because they're the most energy efficient of all the animals and sea creatures, apparently. And if you look, before he got injured, there's a chart showing like Tua's efficiency compared to other college quarterbacks, and it's basically off the charts compared to the average. And he had like the 3 most efficient seasons of all time in terms of his passing. So that's why he is a jellyfish to me. And it is a strong comparison, not a weak jellyfish, not like a washed up jellyfish on the beach. It's a whole bunch of jellyfish in the ocean that aren't allowing you to swim because they'll zap you.
They're pretty unfair, especially like box jellyfish that are clear and like transparent and tiny. I was diving in Hawaii, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, and there was some kid like got brought back onto the boat, just like convulsing, like seizures, like and the Coast Guard had to come out and meet the boat and get him, and apparently he got stung by a box jellyfish. Like you can't see them, and they're one of the most venomous animals in the world. Like it's just not fair.
So really quick tangent there. So this past January, my wife and I went on a trip to the Dominican Republic, and she was snorkeling and she saw, I think it was a moray eel, right, Matt? And I'm texting Matt about it, and we're being told how dangerous this thing is or whatever. And Matt's like, oh, I dive with those things all the time. You know, I just go down, you know how people like go swimming in the shark tanks and like cages to prevent themselves. He's like, no, I don't need that. I'm fine. He's like, they're hard.
They just hide. They go into a rock outcropping and they hide unless someone is bringing out food to feed them. That's when people get hurt by eels.
Well, this guy was giving them squid to like.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so he's not very smart.
There's one, I don't remember exactly where it was or what kind of moray eel it was, but there was like, you know how sometimes I don't know what channel, maybe Animal Planet, they do like the world's most dangerous animals, whatever. There's a pretty famous video of a person like trying to feed it hot dogs, trying to feed one hot dogs, and you know, underwater, and especially to an eel, a hot dog probably looks like a thumb, right? So it took the thumb instead of the hot dog. So there's a famous one of that video of that if you want to go see what that looks like. But I think in general, as long as you don't try to feed them, like what you probably shouldn't be doing anyway, then you're probably okay.
Yeah, Matt just goes diving with them all the time with no protection. It's fine.
I've never even seen one. I have like, I don't know, 250, 300 dives or so. And I've never seen one out free swimming. So they always hide in the rocks. So if you don't go in there sticking your hand in their
with their head poking out,
like and they look menacing because they have that they open their mouth.
That open mouth.
That's how they breathe though. They're pulling water through their mouth into their gills, and then that's how they breathe. So they're not like trying to be menacing at you. But you know,
they also just look prehistoric. To be fair, they look like dinosaurs. Transition.
I was sitting trying to imagine. Yeah.
So,
speaking of eels.
Yeah, speaking of eels, Justin Herbert's kind of like an eel, right? Now, Justin Herbert was drafted by he was drafted by the Chargers, and everyone knows that it was really kind of a top 2 in this class, and Herbert is the 3rd guy, and I guess Love. Sorry, Matt, to bring up Jordan Love. I don't know. Yeah, but I guess Love is now the 4th guy. But Herbert was drafted by the Chargers, and it's a good landing spot, at least in my opinion, because of the weapons. But then there's all this talk coming out that they were maybe interested in Cam Newton. So, Scott, let's start with you. Do you think that's an indication of what they think of Herbert, or more that they just don't trust Tyrod for this year?
Yes. Can I just say yes? No, I think they want Herbert to be the future, and I think that they realize, especially nowadays, when you know you're moving on from a guy like Phillip Rivers or a franchise quarterback, and you want to find a new franchise quarterback, odds are you have to find them in the first round. And I think teams that are in that mode are just going to start. I think the data has shown they're just you should just start taking shots on first and second round quarterbacks when you know that you have to make that transition coming up. And I'm sure they hope that Herbert is that guy, but they also want to win now. And Tyrod Taylor has, he's looked good at times. He's looked not good at times. Herbert's going to have basically no off season. They can't depend on him for wins, and they have players that, like you said, they have weapons to make a shot now. That defensive secondary is awesome. Their offensive weapons from Eckler to Williams to Keenan Allen to Hunter Henry they have pieces. They have a terrible line, but they have pieces. And maybe Cam Newton fits better with the terrible line because he probably still has a little bit of running in his legs. And same as Tyrod. But no, I think it's all of those things that they probably want Herbert to be the future, but they realize this is a unique year where they need to build for the future, but they also need to try to win now. And they're in an off season where Herbert's not going to get the reps that they're going to want him to get. So have Tyrod and Cam try to do whatever they can this year. I actually kind of like the move for the Chargers for this year. You hate it as a fantasy owner, but I kind of get it on a franchise level. Matt,
what do you think?
Yeah, I think of the three, he's probably the most likely to sit the whole season. You have the relationship between Tyrod and Anthony Lynn from when they were in Buffalo. I think Tyrod is a competent quarterback that could run the offense that Lynn wants to run. And they have enough talent on the rest of the team that they could be a fringe playoff team, another one of those teams that could easily make that 7th playoff spot. So if they're in the running again for pretty much the whole season, I could see Tyrod. Or Cam, if he's brought in, being that quarterback for the whole season. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea for Herbert either. So I don't know. I think there's a chance he plays, but I think it's pretty slim compared to the other two we've been talking about.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do hope that he plays because I'd like to see what he does with the weapons. And I also think that they have a situation where if he comes in and plays well, as Scott was alluding to, they could make the playoffs, but I think that's also why they could sign a guy like Cam, because they realize they are in this contention window and they don't necessarily want to turn the reins over to a rookie quarterback. I guess since I've made you guys start on the other ones, I'll start with my animal comparison for Justin Herbert. And this one is, I guess it's an aquatic theme. Maybe it's because we have someone with the last name Fish. I don't really know, but I'm going to go with a dolphin. And it's because dolphins work best in pods when they're hunting down fish. And in this case, Justin Herbert needs other weapons around him to succeed. I don't think he's necessarily...
And a clean pocket.
He's not the best quarterback, but he is at least a good enough quarterback that if you provide him with weapons around him, or in this case, a pod to help him attack, he'll be fine.
I like
it.
Yeah,
I don't mind it.
I thought I can see both ways you were going on that. Yeah, I like that.
What do you got, Scott?
That's why I'm trying to think of an I'm stalling as I try to think of an animal. The only animal I thought of was for Burrow, and I didn't get to the other two before I came on.
I'll go and give you some more time. I went with a baby African elephant, and this is a little bit weird, but. African elephants have a gestation period of about like 22 to 24 months. So Herbert he's inside he's just a fetus inside the belly of the Chargers, and in a year or two he's gonna come out and be a big strong elephant. I guess I don't know if that really works, but that was my first.
This is not the only time that we've alluded to elephant genitalia on this podcast.
Wow.
It's not genitalia. I didn't say anything about genitalia, Bobby.
The imagery
where's
was
your
there.
mind at? Where's your brain at, man? In the gutter.
Yeah, I'm having trouble thinking of one.
You don't have to. It's fine.
I do like those though. I like that you guys go really off board with your animals. That must be why you guys do this show, is because you guys really dig deep. I'm trying to think of like normal common animals that most people, my son would know. You guys
Like snowmen.
you're throwing out archer fish.
That's more Matt. But to be fair, and this is also another tangent. So I was watching Jeopardy with my family, and something came up, and I forget exactly what it was. It was like, oh, this animal. I even forget the animal at this point, but it was an animal question, and it was very specific. And I answered it, and they were like, "How do you know that?" And I was like, "I host a podcast with a zookeeper, and I guess I've learned something from it. I don't know." They were very impressed. So thanks, Matt.
Sure, no problem, Bobby. I'll take my 5%.
You've helped Bobby with a Jeopardy question.
Well, but see, hosting this podcast, you do actually pick up things just from listening to Matt, or like I've gotten to the point where I tried to do research on animals beforehand, so that even though Matt is the expert here, I at least somewhat sound like I know what I'm talking about. And so I've become more educated about animals, and that's a nice benefit of the Zooperflex podcast for both myself and I'm sure our listeners. I represent our listeners and how much they learn about both football and animals.
I mean, all this information is out there. It's not like I'm bringing anything completely original to the table here.
No, you are.
I mean,
you absolutely. Your average person wouldn't think that deeply about several of these things.
Okay.
Also, Matt, how many people do you think knew about Pablo Escobar's hippos?
Oh, that's a good point. I don't know. That was a good story. If are they in Narcos? I still haven't finished Narcos, but I don't. Maybe we'll talk about them in Narcos. I don't know.
Scott, have we stalled long enough for you to find that?
No, I don't think so.
Transition.
I was just sitting here reading a little bit on Herbert and trying to connect anything I can to a certain animal, and I'm just drawing a blank. This is clearly not my forte.
Right.
I should have put more thought into the animals before coming on the show.
I would like to know what animal Ian thinks Herbert is like.
Well, if he was in the room, I would ask him, but he's outside playing baseball right now. I see.
The wrong sport, Scott.
I know. I can't help it. It changes all the time. He was just playing basketball, like when I started. So
nice.
He's
Scott, make sure you tweet that after the show. I want you, when we're done here, to go and ask him what animal Justin Herbert is, and let people know.
I will do that.
And we're going to transition to your favorite animal. That time I didn't even have to really say transition, and that's the tapir. Now I've got myself all confused because I was trying to say it right the first time. It's just, you guys say it tapir, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I usually
it just sounds more natural. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and tapir sounds better to some people, which I think both are technically correct. But
we said this before the show. I'd always said tapir, but when we had a baby tapir born at the Minnesota Zoo, the zookeeper kept calling it a tapir. So, I guess both are fine. Matt confirms.
That's one of those weird Minnesota things, I think, how you guys don't have duck, duck, goose, duck, duck, gray duck. What is that all about?
It's just awesomeness is what it is, really. I mean, it's unique awesomeness. But now Wisconsin, with not having drinking fountains, they have bubblers. That's just weird. But duck, duck, gray duck makes sense.
They call it a bubbler in Massachusetts too. By the way.
I lived in Wisconsin for 2 years, and I don't think I ever heard that. But that's cool. I like it.
It's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I can't think about water fountains now without thinking about the episode of Parks and Rec where they have to come up with a way to prevent the potty residents from putting their whole mouth.
Those would absolutely be outlawed right now. Water fountains are basically a criminal offense at this point.
Well, Scott, tell us a little bit about why you like tapirs, and then we will have Matt give some fun facts. I say fun facts, but sometimes they're not so fun. I should probably just say facts, And then just because sometimes we're talking about animals that are endangered or going extinct, but why do you like them?
I think mostly I just think they look cool because they're half like this super dark grayish black and half like a really light grayish. And they got this cool proboscis. Did you say?
Yeah, we'll go with proboscis.
Proboscis, this cool
mini trunk,
soft little, like it's exactly what it is. It's like an elephant trunk, only it's maybe like a foot long. It's really short, but it does the job, and they eat with it. I believe they eat with it. I've seen them like shoving food into their mouth with it. But I think what I love is when they're babies, they look like little watermelons with legs, which is absolutely adorable. And we've had babies here at the Minnesota Zoo, and they're not always together with the parent and baby all the time right away. And maybe Matt knows something about that. But once they start to drop that watermelon coloring and they get more they're more monotone, and then they get to the two color thing later. But they seem like good parents. They seem like helpful parents in there. And I kind of like that too. I don't know. I just think they look cool and they act cool, and I love the way they look when they're babies. There's a lot I like about them, I guess.
So, Matt, what are some facts you can share with us about tapirs?
Yeah, I think Scott's referring to the Malayan tapir. That's my favorite one. Well, I don't know. It's a toss-up between the Malayan tapir and the woolly mountain tapir, but
it is the Malayan at Minnesota Zoo.
Yeah, there are 4 recognized species, and they think there's maybe a 5th one, but hasn't been, I don't think, classified as a unique species yet. But so there's the Malayan tapir, that's the black and white one, the woolly mountain tapir, the Baird's tapir, and the lowlands tapir, and all of them except for the lowland tapir are pretty endangered. They're people like, what the heck is that animal? It's like a mixture of all these things. They're actually mostly related to between horses and rhinos are their closest living relatives. The ones that live in South America, all of them except for the Malayan tapir live in South America. They're the largest native land animal in South America. And like Scott mentioned, they have that prehensile kind of nose where they can grab stuff with it when they swim. They spend a lot of time in the water. They use it like a snorkel kind of, so they can just stay underwater. Not quite as long pregnancy as the elephants, but longer than us at 13 or 14 months. And they are very, the parents do take good care of them. They stay with mom for about 12 to 18 months, which is longer than a lot of animals. So I think I've told it on this podcast before, Bobby, so I cannot tell it if you want again, but I think I tell a story about the Malayan tapir and the baby and that I helped raise at Woodland Park Zoo, and how her and her mom kind of teamed up to grab some food that they couldn't reach. Did I tell that story before?
That doesn't sound familiar.
Well,
no, that doesn't sound familiar, so go for it. I'm sure
people
have heard it, they'd like to again.
So people generally, I don't know, maybe not generally, I don't know how I guess the general public feels about hoofstock, which are animals with hooves, but typically they're considered, not quite as intelligent as other animals. But I tell this story to kind of refute that. So I took care of and helped raise this baby tapir, baby Malayan tapir, and it was it was just at the edge of winter. There was not really any more leaves left on the trees, but there was this one tree that still had some browse on it. So mom, her name was Keelang, came over, sits down like a dog, and then they do this whistle kind of call. They're super high pitched whistle, and so it calls the baby over, and she kind of pulls up and jumps on mom's shoulders with her front feet, grabs that last branch of browse, pulls it down, and they both share it. So even animals that people say are not necessarily the most intelligent can problem solve like that. So that's what my favorite tapir story that I have.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. But also, does that mean that you acknowledge that pandas are okay?
No, come on, they're still the worst animal.
Ice bear is the best.
Ice bear is by far the best bear.
Best bear. I feel like both of you might have gotten that reference, which makes me really, really happy.
We Bear Bears, man. It's one of the best. I don't know if it's. I guess it's a kid show, but there's definitely stuff for adults in that show.
It's my 2-year-old's favorite show in the world. We've gotten him We Bear Bears toys. I was thinking about getting an Ice Bear Funko for my desk because I love Ice Bear so much.
They have those?
Oh, absolutely.
Funkos for that show?
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
absolutely. And I have had the Ice Bear one in my cart for a while on Amazon.
That's awesome. I might have to get those.
Ian says Justin Herbert is an elephant, and my other son says he's a turtle. So that is what it is.
Me and Ian agree. We're right on target.
Yeah. Yep.
I recently watched the We Bear Bear episode where they start like a coffee bar.
Yes.
And Ice Bear like gets addicted to caffeine. He's just like making coffee 24/7.
Do you watch with subtitles? Because it's the best. Like skittering.
No, I don't. Oh, they do.
Oh man, the songs are so much funnier with the subtitles.
Okay.
When you read all the words, because some of the songs just simply describe what's happening, which is so amazing. But yeah, that show's great. We Bear Bears is great.
I've watched that show despite the fact that I don't have children, just because I like cartoons. And also I like some of the casts that are voice actors in it. And
there's a lot of really good
stand-up before. So that's part of the reason I've checked it out. But yes, I know what you're talking about when it comes to Ice Bear. Some people on the open bar would tell you that if you started talking about My Little Pony, I would also understand what you're talking about. They call me Robert Elizabeth Pony. That fake news. I don't know My Little Pony, but you know Bear Bear.
I know you were a brony,
dude.
That's a great documentary, right?
I have that too, and it's out there a little bit, but so not the My Little Pony thing with you that they're trying to spread, but so the inside joke in my family, my wife has spread for 20 years that my favorite movie in the world is She's All That.
I love that story.
Yeah, Matt knows the story. I don't know if you know this story, Bobby, but for 20 years, my wife has pushed this out there, and it has found itself either by me podcasting or just Twitter in general or whatever. It found itself into the Twitter ranks of people making fun of me for She's All That. One time, I turned off whatever recording or movie I was watching as my wife got home. And when I turned off the movie, what was playing in the background? She's All That. And I haven't been able to live it down since. That I turn out, she walks into the house and She's All That is on the TV with like I'm home alone watching She's All That or something. Oh, it's terrible.
My Little Pony thing started kind of similarly. J-Mike, I was going on open bar, and J-Mike was throwing a party for his daughter, and he had some My Little Pony balloons. So I said something like "nice balloon," and then they were like, "Oh, Bobby loves My Little Pony."
Oh, I think I did see that tweet. That's great.
Have you watched that documentary, Bobby? The Bronies documentary?
No, but I did actually know a Brony. Really, I did know a Brony in college, believe it or not. He was a interesting guy.
Interesting. Yeah, I would imagine that would be an interesting guy. Oh man,
I forgot to mention it, but if you guys are like tapers as much as Scott and I, you can donate to the Taper Specialist Group at tapers.org. They do a lot of research and conservation work with all 4 species of tapers.
Very nice.
Appreciate you putting that out there, and make sure you check that out. I know with the financial situation going on right now, not everybody has the means to donate, but if you do, that's certainly a good cause. And we're going to transition to our extinctions of the week. I thought about not doing this during the pandemic because there's a lot of negativity already out there, but I also think that people need a venue to unleash some of their frustrations. So we're going to continue to do this. And Matt, do you have something that you'd like to lead off with for your extinction of the week, or since it's been since October, extinction of the past few months?
Yeah, I mean, it's not very original. It's just if you're one of these idiots that are out in big public spaces not wearing a mask, please go extinct. These there was a thing several years ago, and I don't remember the state. Maybe for some reason Kentucky stands out, but there was this big thing about a bakery that refused to bake a wedding cake for a gay couple getting married. So now it's just weird that the same group of people that say, oh well, the stores, they can operate how they want to operate and serve who they want to serve. Now they have problems with stores making rules about coming in without wearing a mask. Like, how do you have both of those things? I just don't get it. If you go into the grocery store, please just wear a mask. It's not about you. It's about everybody else.
That's the weird thing. Like, I saw someone make a counter argument that would you wear goggles so you can't get in your eyes? I'm like, no, it's not about you. It's about you spreading it to others. It's the other way around. You wear the mask to try to protect others.
Clearly, these people have not read enough John Stuart Mills. And yes, I did TA for political theory, so I still remember John Stuart Mills.
Yeah, just be a good person. Wear a mask. God, it's not that big a deal. My go-to now, if you don't like the mask, is I don't like the mask as much because what do I do with it when I'm not wearing it? Is it in a pocket or whatever? You're not supposed to touch the outside of it. I wear a buff like on Survivor around my neck. So when I need it, I pull it up. When I don't, it's just hanging around my neck. And the other day I found myself not even like it just, you don't even really feel it if you get the right one. Like I found myself like when I was going to bed, I still had it around my neck because I didn't even realize it was there. So just make it part of your normal day to day. Throw it around your neck, and you're good. Pull it up when you need it.
Yeah.
I made a trip to the city to rescue some of my stuff, including a bottle of scotch that I absolutely had to have at my parents' house. I saw some guys wearing masks, but wearing them around their shin and not pulling them up when they saw people. So just a PSA, if you're going to wear a mask, it needs to cover your mouth and your nose, or it's not going to do anything for you. I saw that out there.
I saw a lady at the Starbucks inside the grocery store that was just wearing it over her mouth, and I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, I don't get it. If I can wear a mask while I am running up and down steep hills. People say it's hard to breathe with them. If I can do it while I'm running up and down steep hills, cleaning an animal exhibit, I think you can do it just like walking in through a grocery store.
Yeah.
Scott, I need to premise this because Scott is known in the community as the nicest guy and is known pretty much throughout as the nicest. So this might be one of the few places you actually hear him go off about anything negatively.
I'm going to hate on the entire universe with this one. My biggest the biggest thing that's been bugging me is the universe only allowing 24 hours in a day. I'm pissed about it. Like that is nowhere near enough time for me to get everything I need to get done and sleep an adequate amount of time. Who decided this 24? I need like 36 hours in a day. Can somebody teach me how to fix this? Because there's just not enough time. And that's my biggest gripe right now is that I don't have enough time to do all the things I want to / need to do. It's not really as much of a fun gripe against, people being idiots out there or whatever, but it's what's really bugging me right now is I just never have enough time for the things that you'd think with everything going on, I'm saving drive time to offices and stuff. Like you'd figure there's more time, and yet somehow there isn't.
Scott, you just
about to say what I'm thinking. Matt, are you going to talk about the parallel universe?
No, I'm not. I was just going to say you need to figure out how we can move to Venus because Venus a day is 5,832 hours.
Oh.
And I was going to suggest the parallel universe that was just discovered by NASA because apparently,
yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, either of those might be options. I'll look into it when we go off air and see what I can figure out.
Could you get Charchi in on that? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get Charch right on that after he's done like swooning over Ryan Fitzpatrick's new beard and hair. I'll get him on that.
Mine is going to be very fantasy related. I thought about going pandemic. I thought about maybe going after the universe, but Scott already did that, so I'll leave the universe alone. So in terms of fantasy, and I had this the other week that I tweeted out, and it was surprisingly more popular than I thought it was. It's essentially just this. If you're going to ask me to share your work, at least seem like you want to have a relationship with me and talk to me and follow me on Twitter. Like I realize the last part might be like petty, but you following me suggests that you at least like want to talk to me and engage.
Right.
So just hopping into my DMs, which have been open so that people can talk to me when they need to. And also just because it's a pandemic going on and I figure everyone needs someone to talk to. Instead of just hopping in and going like, hey, share this, thanks. Maybe like, hey, I really thought this particular piece of work was great, or even just like talk to me about comic books, video games, MLB The Show. I would love to talk to you about MLB The Show. And
it feels like this entire show is just Bobby begging someone to get into his DMs to talk about MLB The Show. Like, I think Matt and I are afterthoughts right now, and Bobby is just looking for an MLB The Show partner friend.
Yeah, clearly. I do have a few fantasy people I talked about MLB The Show with. I'm not even kidding.
This clearly needs to be the Zooperflex, not the Zooperflex.
But the point still remains, try to show that you're having some kind of relationship with me and not just using me to share your work.
I have an addendum to that too. Like I have people my DMs are open to, and I certainly have less followers than you two. But I get questions like fantasy,
which is a
questions,
crime.
Yeah, I would say we should fix that. I should not have more
nothing.
followers than Matt.
I'm nobody. But anyway, so I have these people that, they message you asking about lineup or trade questions or whatever. And there's this one guy who's been sending me questions for, I don't know, at least a year. And I always answer, and he doesn't say thank you ever. There's not, scroll back through the entire thing, not a single thank you. And he's not even following me. Like,
That's the worst,
I don't care about follower count, obviously, but like, if you're going to have a year worth of free advice, like you could at least toss me a follow or one thank you in a year, I would think. So now he sent me like 4 in a row and I haven't responded. So we'll see if they keep coming.
He's going to listen to this podcast and feel very attacked.
I hope he does.
Yeah, those are. Yeah, Ryan McDowell. He's one of my closer friends in the industry. We talk about those things all the time. We have the open DMs too, and we get questions or people asking for things, like anywhere from SFB spots to retweeting things to, can you check out my work? And then we go to like click on them to like check out their pin tweet or whatever.
Yeah,
not following. You're like, what the hell? Like.
How did you even find me? Why do you think if I'm not worth following, why do you want my advice anyway?
Well, my first thought is they've spammed like 8 people with it. That's my thought when I see that. Like, I'm like, you probably just hit up a bunch of people or something.
I won't fire particular shots, but after tweeting that, a bunch of people did DM me and was like, hey, was this particular guy? And it was that particular guy. So apparently it was a person just doing that to a bunch of people.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I'm thankful that, I miss, it sucks, but I miss a lot of DMs too. Like the DM with the open DMs, sometimes they just drop off and it does suck, but I do miss a lot of those too. So that's, I guess that's fine.
Yeah. My DMs are not nearly as popular. I see all of those that come in, but it's just a thing like, and it applies to life too. This isn't just fantasy. If you want to ask people for things, being nice to them first goes a long way.
Yeah. I'm the same as you guys. I don't care about like the follower count or them. Like, I don't care that much, but if you're asking me to do something or help you out, it's weird that like, I love when you get I'm a big fan of your work and all you do. And then they're not following you. It's like, are you? Anyway. Yeah. Not a big deal anyway.
Yeah, you would say that, Scott. You have to you always have to walk it back just a little bit.
Yeah,
I will say it's a big deal. Be less rude.
Yeah, it's that's generally me. I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. People are going to do what they want, and they have every right to do what they want, and it's fine. That is what it is.
So I did put this here, and you guys don't have to do it, but you can share some. I used to listen to The Good Place, the podcast. And we used to do the segment called Tell Me Something Good or What's Good.
Something good. Did they play that every time, that song?
Yeah, pretty much. It did at least once. But if you want to, you can tell me something good. It can be in your personal life. It can be in the fantasy community. It could be in the universe. Maybe Matt actually likes the fact that there are 24 hours. I don't know. Don't have
that's crazy talk.
Take an extra hour or two for sure.
I think everyone could take an extra hour or two.
I just figured it's a good time to share some positive news as well.
Well, this isn't positive news as much as it is just saying teachers are amazing. I was raised by teachers, so I've always held teachers in really high regard. But having to watch my son go through distance learning for the last 8 weeks has given me a new respect for teachers who deal with a bunch of first graders or second graders, or what Ryan McDowell's a third grade teacher or second. I can't remember second or third, but like people who teach young kids, like how do you wrangle all those kids and actually teach them things? It's amazing to me. It's I'm so impressed by teachers right now.
My ex-wife, she taught 30. She had one class of 38 seventh graders. in a science class. How do you get 38 kids that are just going through puberty to do anything? I have no idea. That's like my nightmare scenario, to be locked in a room with 38 seventh graders.
I've been
sounds
on the
terrible.
record as saying middle schoolers are the worst people on the planet.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know.
I'm gonna when my kids are in middle school, they are going to have the basement. We have a split level house. There's 2 bedrooms downstairs, 2 bedroom upstairs. I'm just going to say the basement is yours. And if I don't see them for a week, I'll just be like, those middle school years, I'm not
Lord of the Flies at Scott's basement.
Yeah, kind of is right now. There's Legos all over the floor. There's just chaos.
Matt, do you have something good to share?
I don't know. I guess personally, I'm happier than I've been in a long time. Things are going great with the
That's awesome
new lady. We've actually somehow been together a year, June 1st. So we're going to go camping out in the middle of nowhere. So things are good, man.
It's good to hear. Congratulations.
Thanks.
And also tell her I said, hey, I enjoyed meeting you guys when you were in New York.
I will.
And
I went out to see Matt last August, and he would not introduce me to her. He absolutely refused to introduce me to her.
Well, you see, Scott, that shiny head of yours, I was afraid you just steal her away. I was really afraid of that. So I had to keep her under a lock.
It's a tough move in front of my wife and kids.
to
Anybody
can do it, it'd be you.
be fair, this was a little later in their relationship that I met them, and he was here on her birthday weekend. Yeah. And basically it was like, hey, is it cool if I meet up with some fantasy people on your birthday weekend? And she was cool with it. So there you go. And my something good, I'm not really supposed to share this news, but I know nobody I talk to listens to it anyway. So I'm going to be an uncle. My brother-in-law is having a kid. And
unclehood is awesome.
I've never been an uncle before, so I'm very excited. It's also interesting because the way that they shared it was he was wearing like a turtleneck that made him look like Steve Jobs. And so we were making fun of him for it. And then he did a costume change and put on like a Thing 1 shirt. And then his wife was wearing Thing 2. And then they held up the little like baby Thing 3. So very excited to be an uncle. And that's my something good.
Nice.
Very awesome. That's very awesome.
As someone who doesn't have kids and isn't planning on having kids, I love being an uncle because I get all the good parts, and at the end of the night I can send them home to their actual family.
Watch, they've never listened to a podcast before. Watch them listen to this one episode and be like, "You weren't supposed to say anything."
Oh, I would love that. You'll have to tell us if that does happen. You will tell us if that happens, I'm sure. Guys, you're never gonna believe this. You actually listened, and
I'd be in so much trouble. It would be insane.
Our 3 listeners got some inside news.
Yeah. With that, unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about, I think we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Let's get out of here.
Yep. Well,
end show.
Transition. The end.
Scott, we appreciate you joining us again. Everyone knows where to find you, but just in case, at ScottFish24 on Twitter. He is in charge of safe leagues. You should make sure you check out some of those leagues and join them. Make his job a little bit easier. Maybe he can get an hour of sleep if some more people join.
I think it works the opposite way, but please do join safeleagues.com or safeleaguesfantasy.com or safeleaguesffl.com. They all go to the same exact site. So we have dynasty leagues, redraft leagues, best ball leagues, dynasty best ball leagues, slow auctions. We're going to have some Devi leagues coming out soon. We got everything. So if you're looking for a startup.
And join the DLF Champion Series because it's so much fun.
I hear those are really fun. I'm not allowed to play in them, but I hear they're fun.
I wasn't sure I was allowed to play in them, but then apparently I was. So that was fun. The only thing I'll say, Scott, is we need an auction version. I know that's probably a pain, too much of a pain to run.
It's absolutely not a pain at all. It's just there's some like grand possible ideas for them, and it would kind of need them to all be run exactly the same for that. But I'm considering it, or I'm considering the same exact setup, just not under the DLF brand or something, to do an auction.
What Matt is saying is he wants you to sleep less, Scott. He's how much sleep you get now, and he wants you to get even less.
Yeah, pretty much. You don't need to sleep.
I need to hire help is what I need to do.
And Matt, let people know where they can find you and what you're up to. I know you're still doing DGN and a few other pods as well.
Yeah, Dynasty Game Night happens. It doesn't happen nearly as often as it used to, honestly. Russ Fisher coming up on board kind of made John and I a little bit lazy because he does all the editing and comes up with a bunch of fresh show ideas and stuff. So and honestly,
is he the reason that you guys don't let me on the show?
Oh my God, I am going.
Russ?
Scott.
Is it Russ that doesn't let me on that show?
Yeah, make sure you uninvite Dynasty Outhouse from the Scott Fishbowl. He's the reason you're not on DGN.
Let's see what else. Find me at Matt Price FF and all my work at DLF, whatever you want to call it, the main podcast, and I do the mailbag.
And you can find us at. You're listening to the show, but just in case, you can find us at Zooperflex on Twitter, exactly as it sounds with the Z. And you can check out our cool polar bear logo that I don't think many people know I had my wife's designer friend draw for us. That is a custom logo. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for tuning in and stay classy, Fantasy Twitter.
Oh, sorry. I talked right over you because I was like, now I got to check out your logo.
And also, hi, Russ. Sorry you're uninvited from FB because of us. Please edit our podcast still.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening.